Good morning. I say good morning to the people of the Virgin Islands. And I'm talking about St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. John, and Little Water Island, the U.S. Virgin Islands. There's nowhere else like the U.S. Virgin Islands, of course. I think we remain one of the number one destinations throughout the Caribbean. And certainly, I'm sure that, of course, our competitors would contest that. But I think that we are, in fact, one of the top destinations throughout the Caribbean. Anyone disagree with me on that? I don't think so. I don't think anyone could possibly disagree with me on that. But I wanted to say good morning again to each and every one of you. And thank you for tuning in once again to Connect the Dots here with Adla Fonsi Donnerstorg every Monday morning from 10 to 11 a.m. Let me open up with COVID. You notice COVID seemed to have been subsiding, and it's becoming like the common cold or the common flu for many folks. I mean, for even the government. Look at it as we're going to have to operate freely and get back to some level of normalcy with the anticipation of these variants. You haven't heard a new variants in a long time. And, you know, it was funny. Someone sent me a flyer that I thought was really, really funny. And the flyer said that they were suspending COVID for Carnival. Suspending COVID for Carnival. I thought that was quite funny. But I guess, you know, people are eager to get back to some level of normalcy and having carnival activities. It seemed like we're having two different entities having carnival. But that's going to be a subject of discussion for a different forum. But we hope that there is a smooth transition, or even both organizations can execute carnivals in a way that would only but complement each other, where people would have activities to go to and there's none actually conflicting. So let's hope that the carnival, it turns out to be okay. Moving along, over the weekend, I think it was Saturday. Saturday, I was told that the local attorney general was actually in an interview, a live interview, and spoke about a number of issues. And among the number of issues that she actually discussed was the issue of Jeffrey Epstein running a criminal enterprise in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And I got this from a friend, so I would truly admit that I was not actually listening to the program, but the person that shared it with me indicated that she said that there was a criminal enterprise that existed in the Virgin Islands, and that's something that she's going to tackle head on. Now, that is interesting because, I mean, when you listen, or if you ever take the time to study the connections, to study all the actors involved with Jeffrey Epstein, it's going to be interesting that the Attorney General is able to proceed without being interrupted, affected, or maybe disenfranchised or attacked in some way. But that's going to be relatively interesting. Crime still rising in the Virgin Islands? And I know that we have had things have gone a little quiet within the last couple of weeks, where people are not hearing about any major crimes. I know there was an issue with a gentleman over the weekend or last week driving over the waterfront. And I understand that there was a domestic dispute between boyfriend and girlfriend, and the gentleman got very, very angry and drove the vehicle over the waterfront. And, you know, people have a tendency of turning things into a humor, which I consider that to be an unfortunate experience because, after all, someone lost their life. But it appears that the lady was rescued and the guy may have just drowned in the vehicle. That's sad. I am not providing any condolences today. Of course, I don't have the daily news this morning, but that's okay. I'm sure that I'll be able to pull it up while I'm here on the radio just to take some tidbits on the newspaper and see what was transpiring. Now, over the weekend, also I received a call from a stalwart Democrat that indicated that something transpired this weekend where the Democrats held their territorial committee meeting online, virtually, and there seemed to have been some attacks on other Democrats. And when we talk about an organization and unity within an organization, when you hear that there's certain players within an organization, and I'm going to refer to them as actors, in an organization, and one start to attack the other, it diminishes the effectiveness of the organization. Then when we talk about the Democratic Party of the Virgin Islands, I've always maintained, is the number of all the people who are registered Democrats. And of course, the organization that represents the Democratic Party, that being a Democratic club that actually is labeled the Democratic Party, is charged with the responsibility of trying to galvanize the sentiments out in the community and actually to accumulate all the positions, creative ideas, innovative ideas, and come up with a platform for the Democratic Party. Whether or not, whether it actually represents each and every one of us who are Democrats, that's left to be seen. And of course, as time progressed, this year is election year. And this year, I believe that the voters of the Virgin Islands are going to be taking notes and making a comparison between the platforms of non-Democrats or candidates who are running outside the Democratic Party versus the Democratic Party. And I believe, and I'm not going to just say I believe, I insist that democracy is intended to embrace all. So even as a party, even as an independent, it should be your agenda to embrace all the people of the Virgin Islands. And I think that as time progresses, you're going to be listening, and I am going to have my 2 cents. I'm going to insert myself as well during the process and be able to provide some observations that I've seen. And, while this morning, the subject this morning, as I had shared and disseminated onto social media and in other outlets, we're discussing this morning what is the purpose of the public or the Virgin Islands Public Finance Authority, the PFA. And I'm going to refer to it as the PFA, that acronym, just to make sure that I don't expend that long title. So the Public Finance Authority we refer to as the PFA, which is common. And the questions I'll be asking is, what is the mission of the PFA? Has it been misused? Does their internal auditors provide concise audits? And when I ask that question, I'm actually referring to if the PFA hires consultants or auditors that work exclusively for them, you can't expect for those auditors to provide a complete, overall, wholesome audit that is not biased. And the reason I'm saying that is the PFA pays these auditors large amounts of money. And when I say large amounts of money, they pay them large amounts of money to conduct these audits that, in fact, I will venture to say that is favorable. Because after all, those actual audits are the audits that they disseminate for the that they share with the public. They share with the newspaper, they share with others, whoever is interested in reading the audit to gain a clear understanding of what is transpiring with the PFA. Now, the question that I would beg to ask is the PFA needed? Is it necessary? We know it was created some time back. And I want to just step back a little bit to give you just a brief summary or brief description of the PFA, the Public Finance Authority. The Virgin Islands Public Finance Authority, PFA, or the authority, was created by Act number 5365 as a public corporation and autonomous governmental instrumentality operating on behalf of the government of the United States Virgin Islands, the government. Its primary duties are: 1, to aid the government of the United States Virgin Islands in the performance of its fiscal duties. 2, to raise capital, public or private, for essential public projects. And 3, to create programs and enter into contracts which will support the financing needs of the government, promote economic recovery, and contribute to the stability of the territory's economy. The United States Virgin Islands Code provides that the debts, obligations, contracts, bonds, assets, receipts, expenditures, accounts, funds, facilities, and property of the authority shall be deemed to be those of the authority and not to be those of the government of the United States Virgin Islands or of any of its offices, bureaus, departments, agencies, commissions, branches, agents, or employees. Now, this would actually explain to the public why sometimes the PFA is not forthcoming with information to the legislature of the Virgin Islands, because they operate as an autonomous entity and don't feel that they're beholding or need to answer to the legislature of the Virgin Islands. If you guys remember, some months back, I asked the question about the list of all the contractors, those contracted by the PFA, because you don't stepping back, those who have assumed the responsibility. It is, in fact, the secretary is, I believe, Keith O'Neill, but the chairman is the governor of the Virgin Islands, Mr. Albert Bryan. And him being governor, and by virtue of his position being the chairman of the PFA, if we talk and we trumpet transparency, then I'm sure that they would be forthcoming with the legislature of the Virgin Islands, notwithstanding the language that I just read out to you. Notwithstanding that language, that they would be forthcoming with the people of the Virgin Islands and share openly all the contracts that you have under the PFA. Now, I could pivot a second here and talk about even the creative financing that they claim that the PFA now would actually save the GRS system in ensuring an infusion or a large amount of funds to actually bridge that gap and to try to eliminate some of the unfunded liability that rests or that the GRS have spoken about for a number of years. A lot of these unfunded early retirement packages that funds were not identified to fulfill that obligation, and the onus had rest squarely on the shoulders of the GRS system, and rightfully so. They have a right to fight for the retirees of the U.S. Virgin Islands, because after all, many of you have toiled, you have worked for many years. I know people that have worked over 35, 38, and even 40 years. I'm not sure they were able to enjoy a retirement, but God forbid. I mean, we all want to be able to enjoy a retirement. And then, consequently, the Virgin Islands Public Finance Authority may borrow money, and that's what they intend to do with the GRS system. Enter into contract and accept grant proceeds for public purposes. The PFA may also, 1, lend the proceeds of bonds or other financing instruments to the government of the United States Virgin Islands, and 2, guarantee loans and financial obligations incurred by the government. 3, invest in funds. 4, arrange for the investment of funds belonging to the government. 5, purchase notes and other obligations or instruments secured by real property. 6, execute contracts and financing instruments. 7, appoint, employ, or contract for the services of officers, agents, employees, and professional service providers as the authority may deem appropriate. And 8, exercise all such incidental powers as may be necessary or convenient for the purpose of carrying out the business objectives and interests of the authority. Professional affiliations. You got 4 legal counsels. With 3 of those legal counsels, you got a bond counsel, legal counsel, counsel to the PFA, bond trustees. They all reside outside, well, with the exception of one that actually reside on St. Croix. But that is thousands, and people need to understand, that is thousands of money that go outside the Virgin Islands. And let me tell you what really, really concerns me. A lot of people don't realize that when we talk about the Public Finance Authority, we also have to talk about its subsidiaries. And there are questions that we should ask with those subsidiaries. And I named them the Kings Alley Management, Inc. Yes, that's under the PFA. You got the West Indian Company Limited. Yes, they are somewhat under the PFA as well. And then you have VINGN. And the question that you have to ask is are they supporting them properly? Are they performing at a level that we need them to perform to make sure that there's a rate, that a return on investment for even the system? And I'm talking about the Public Finance Authority. I know that in the past, you've had senators asking questions of the PFA, and those questions go unanswered. I've heard in the past, the Daily News request information under the Sunshine Laws, the Sunshine Law, that the PFA have not fully disclosed. And then you got an audit that took place, I believe it was a couple of years. What was it? I think it was back in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. An audit that did not shine favorable on the PFA. Now that's 2017. Even through the independent, or what I would consider internal auditor. And when I say internal auditor, let me shift it a little bit. Under, or the auditors that they tapped in terms of companies, you got BDO, in particular, that provides audits for the PFA, Public Finance Authority. And yes, it's the same BDO entity. You had BDO Puerto Rico, BDO USVI, same entity that actually provided auditing services to the PFA. They had disappeared for a little while, but then they came right back and they provide an audit. Do you think that they would want to lose their contract by outlining every deficiency that exists in the PFA? No, they'll probably tip bit. And I think their mission is to correct some of the flaws or the deficiencies that existed and that was outlined in the audit of 2017. And of course, that audit, there's still a lot of items in there that have gone unanswered. So I'm not sure in this case if, in fact, there isn't a need to have the same federal, local auditors collaborate to conduct a follow-up audit and make sure that all the listing of all them contracts that was sent to the legislature when they had to testify before the legislature, that every single contract appear in that listing. I'm wondering why senators, some of the senators, especially the Finance Committee, did not request or check that listing to determine if it's consistent, and not to mention the expenditures to see if it adds up. Because this is all part of connecting the dots to make sure that the people's interest is protected. Because you see, I think what we fail to understand is that if government is not functioning properly, if aspects of the government monies are being funneled down a black hole, that affects the people of the Virgin Islands because you're stripping them of resources that are valuable and could be used for constructive things. Oh, and when I say constructive things, I mean, a lot of things. But let me go to the telephone line and start taking some calls. Good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning, Fonzie. What's up?
Good, good, good. How are you doing?
Okay, I've been good. I've been good. Before I answer the question, right, I want to say this. You remember some years ago, I was working. We got an 8% pay cut. You remember that?
The 8% from government employees?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we got the money back some years later. Could be 10 years.
Yeah, it's 10 years
Which,
and a month.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I'm retired, and they gave us back our money that they owe us, and take retirement out of it. Retirement already taken out what they're taking out because you're retired already. I don't know who to be doing these things and who come up with the idea, but it don't sound right to me. Then we came up with a plan for years, for the last 10 years, we have to bail out the GRS. We have to come up with this amount of money, substantial amount of money, to bail out the GERS, which don't sound good to me. So what's your take on the bailout to GRS?
Well, when you have a debt, borrowing on a debt could potentially mean that you're compounding the debt. Now, I understand their claim is that they're going to sort of try to restructure their debt in achieving a lower interest rate. And that's understandable because I believe that once they're able to achieve a lower interest rate, that collectively it definitely will be lower all around the border in the consolidation of all debts, then you could be achieving something. But let me just reflect on the same pattern that Puerto Rico went through when Puerto Rico spoke about their borrowing. Do you recall that when Puerto Rico decided that they would lease the airport, I believe, for 100 years, which removed a significant revenue stream, and it wasn't a revenue stream that would be reoccurring. So they took a one-time lump sum payment. But what became bothersome is that when they spoke about borrowing and they went to borrow money, it was on the same premise that they would consolidate and try to restructure to achieve a lower interest rate, but consolidating the debt. What that means, if you had a loan over here with one entity and a loan for this purpose and a loan for that purpose, and the loans, in an average, the interest rate was probably around 8% to 10%, possibly bordering on even 12%, that you would try to consolidate your debt, borrow money from elsewhere, and try to ensure that you have a lower interest rate on the total debt. But remember, you still have a debt. So what you have done is borrowed on top of a debt. I have not had the opportunity, and I will try to pull the legislation, but the little captions that I've read didn't clearly spell out to me that, or convince me that this would have been an achievable approach. But we want the GRS system to be on good footing.
I know that, but the thing is, if we invest in something that would give us a percentage of interest or money coming in. Say if we're losing 150,000 a month or 150 million a month or whatever the case may be, if we are getting back a percentage of that from what we invest in to get the money to flow into the GRS, that's something more substantial, because if you lose something and you're gaining 60 or more percent on something that you're doing, then it might take a certain amount of years to get it back, yes, but it is an investment that even if you lose 100,000, you just gain 60,000.
Yeah.
You know, but they're not going to do that. We can invest in water, different things in this place to get money to be flowing in, rather than somebody trying to say we're going to try to do something to get lowest interest rate, because based on what we're going to do to get money to flow through it, we're going to be making our money, and we run with the people of the Virgin, because as long as we invest in it and we're going to make our money, we don't care about them. But it is still a plan. And this is something like thinking that they're doing, because whoever going to invest in it have to be gaining something from it. So if we get 2%, they might get 49%. And as long as they're making money to that rate, we're going to be in trouble all the time. But I ain't getting from a loan from First Bank to get a loan from them to pay off Banco, and then I still have a debt, and then I still have to take 5 or 4 years, or whatever the terms may be, to pay it off, and I put myself in more debt. That's the same thing you just explained. This is what they're doing. But at a lower rate, as long as they're making more money or some kind of money based on what they're receiving, then they're good. And that ain't sound like a plan for the people of the Virgin Islands, but it's just an excuse to say at least we're doing something.
Yeah. Well.
So anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have a blessed day.
Thank you.
It's a blessing to hear you.
Same to you. Same to you as well. And thanks for calling.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone have their set of observations, and of course that the GRS system is sacred. And when I say sacred, I could not imagine the GRS system collapsing in any way. But here's a question that I also would beg to ask. And that question that I would beg to ask is, here you have a lot of successful individuals in the private sector. Those individuals, of course, making millions of dollars in investment and stocks, bonds, and all types of different things. And you ask yourself the question, why can't the GRS system embrace the same concept and practices in trying to improve their portfolio based on the level of investments? Because then your money you would not be dependent on one source. Now, if we step back into history, step back into the past, I believe it was the GRS system that lent Carambola money, that lent KFC, that lent Seaborn. And during the same period, I believe at one point they discontinued the small loans to regular government employees to the tune of $10,000 or lending because what was the reason? I'm not sure. But I would venture to say with the small microloans that it is the most secured loan, because if the person has a retirement and they're paying in their contributions and the government paying a portion, of course, that person has money to serve as some collateral, because that's what they use, and that's what they've used in the past. Even if you default on that small loan, that they can always get it from your annuities. But coming back on the large, on the grander scale, a lot of these companies that actually got these huge loans. So now coming back to what I was saying, I beg to say, if you have all these investors, all these successful people in the private sector that have been able to capitalize on the stock market and reap serious dividends, returns, why is it that a GRS system can't maybe adopt something in particular? And I'll get to one point that the average Virgin Islanders don't sit down to discuss. Algorithm. The algorithm that the GRS system have been using through maybe the actuaries, consultants, has been in existence for how many years? And there's an old saying, if something is not working, above all, try something else. And I say, maybe the algorithm that they're using, they need to totally revamp, get rid of it, and use something else. And appoint some young whiz to actually deal with the algorithm formula to determine where the trends exist, where to invest. Because if you continue to be totally dependent on the government's ability, with the government not really functioning as they should, or making sure that they protect our resources and make sure our resources go where they're supposed to go, and make sure that government departments are functioning, have all the tools that they need to operate effectively. Because we have, and I'll give you an example. You got Inspection Lane. I was truly disappointed to see when I recently visited Inspection Lane to see where they are today. They should have been in a state-of-the-art building with a number of stalls in place, with nice offices, a nice environment, because they're a revenue-producing agency. The Motor Vehicle Bureau is what I'm talking about, or the Bureau of Motor Vehicle. It's sad to see the conditions in which those workers are working under. And that's what I'm talking about. The government providing the resources and the tools needed for government agencies and bureaus, departments to operate effectively. That's not happening. Maybe it's not a priority for them. But you're asking the government agencies and bureaus to perform at an optimum level and generate revenues for the coffers. But there's not a return to them, or significant return, to make sure that they feel that they are appreciated. That deeply saddens me, because I drafted the legislation that created the Bureau of Motor Vehicles. And it was with the intention, and it was with a vision, that that entity would be in or be in better accommodations today. State-of-the-art building, state-of-the-art equipment, and functioning freely and able to perform and provide the services to this community. Because I'm sure many of you go down to Inspection Lane and you sometimes get frustrated because of the timelines, because of many things. But understand that sometimes it's attributed to a lack of resources, lack of encouragement, lack of motivation, that totally disrupt morale as well. And then they have to contend with serving the patrons or motorists when they go down there for services. So there is so many things that I can venture on. But coming back to this thing with the Public Finance Authority, I'm sure that even senators have questioned certain practices of the Public Finance Authority. You see, when it was created with certain intentions. And those intentions, of course, became obvious over the years, with a lot of the steering of bonds, how bonds are handled, with the selection. You see, the governor sits in a very powerful position, because he can determine who bond counsel, legal counsel, and other counsels are. And when you look at the language contained under the PFA, that they can carry out business objectives and interests of the authority. It didn't say carry out the business objectives of the people of the Virgin Islands, you know. It say on the interests of the authority. Now, I say that to say I'm surprised that there aren't instances where certain things are questioned. But let me go to the telephone line. Good morning, you on the air, connect the dots.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Senator Daniel. How are you?
I'm fine, I'm blessed. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. I was curious about something. I understand, based on what you were saying a few minutes ago, that the PFA is infusing funds into the GERS as a bailout. Is that correct?
Yes, they were supposed to be indulging and being the vehicle to create a package, a borrowing, to in fact put an infusion of significant funds into the GRS system.
Okay, so then my question is this. Whatever happened to the government via finance giving the GERS all of the monies that they deducted from all government employees? Did that ever happen?
Well, that all contributed, I believe, to the unfunded liability. Because remember now that I'm going to go to the first branch of government, the legislature of the Virgin Islands. If the legislature of the Virgin Islands supports or decide that they're going to approve an early retirement package, which allowed for a certain group of people that meet certain requirements, number of years and that type of stuff, to be able to retire early. The legislature is supposed to identify funds to be able to fulfill that obligation in terms of paying the GRS system for the person to be able to retire. I don't know if you recall or remember years ago, certain people were on an early retirement package and had to end up assuming the responsibility of paying what was due and owing to the GRS system in order for them to retire. And it was no fault of theirs. There were instances, there were instances where under hazardous duty, marshals and others wanted to retire to discover that they were only contributing to the system 8%, and it would require on the latter part of their careers before they retired, 5 and 6 years, they needed to come up with that 2% differential in addition to the match that was coming from the government to include up to the 10% to be contributed to the GRS system. So these created a lot of confusion, complications, but it also, in many instances, because the government failed to have fulfilled their obligation, it was considered an unfunded liability.
Lord have mercy. I am a retiree, and it's not easy to know that I may not be able to get my retirement pension all because of this. I don't know if I could call them negligence, call it negligence, I don't know. But the idea that you have also, the suggestion that you've been making for quite some time now about them reinstating the loan program for the retirees, I think that that is a fantastic suggestion. I think that they need to do it. Maybe what they could do is they can start with just re-implementing it just for those that are retired, where they can secure that they will get their monies back because they have the deductions that they can make from the paychecks every 2 weeks. With the present employees, I don't know that the present employees, because so many of them go in there, then they go in and like years ago they would go in and get a loan, and then all of a sudden they quit the government and they take off. So that was an unpaid loan, you see. So maybe they can start by just reinstating it for the retirees at the moment as a temporary measure, and then start to infuse themselves back with the interest rate that they would get back.
Yeah.
To at least, it's only a small little Tunchi band-aid, but it's something, And I think that the government needs to step up to the plate and continue to pay those, the retirement system, the monies that they deducted from the employees. To me, it's illegal for them to retain that, to withhold it. Why? They were withholding it still. It doesn't make sense. You see, but none of them are retired. You see, so it can be a hardship on them, and I don't know if they have parents or family members that are retired, but it's a hardship on us. And it's a lot of stress for us not to know whether we are or are not going to get a paycheck a certain predicted time that they say that the system is going to collapse. That puts a lot of stress on us. And it's too much.
Yeah.
Anyway, I need to discuss another matter. I need to know about the refunds because I heard that in the press conferences that the refunds were pretty much up to date, but I think I have 4 years in there that I have not gotten back one off. And so there are several other people in our territory that have years of refunds that we have not gotten back. So if you can touch on that, I'll hang up so that I wouldn't overstay my welcome and abuse the time.
Okay.
Per person.
Okay.
Okay, so just have
Thanks
to
for
say to you,
calling.
God bless you. We are very proud of you. God bless you, and continue to do what you're doing, because we will not be informed otherwise, you know?
Okay, thanks, and I'll do my
Okay,
best. I'll
thank you.
continue to do my best.
Okay, God bless you.
Okay, bless you as well. Now, now, if I understand what the caller just said, she's owed 4 years of income tax refund. But the governor have publicly stated that they have paid up until, is it 2019 or 2020? All income tax refunds that was owed. Well, I stand corrected if that's not the thing, but to hear someone say that they're 4 years behind. If you recall, when I filed that case against the government, it was twofold. One was to ensure that the government respect the law that I had drafted as well, to set aside 10% of all income taxes collected and empower the director of the of IRB to be able to handle or have access to those funds, to make sure that there was some continuity in the way income tax refunds were being paid. What that did was reduce the level of interest that would have to be paid out to persons or individual taxpayers who are desirous or who are entitled to a refund, to be paid on time and it not accumulate interest onto what is owed to them. That would be saving the government money. The other thing was that we find a way for the government to set aside in a special fund for the purpose of paying income tax refunds on time, again, to have that continuity, and then allow the legislature to use the miscellaneous section of the budget to put monies in there that would make up for the differential. Because just to share a little history with you, when I initially drafted the legislation for the income tax set aside, it amended an existing law that called only for 4.5%. The population had grown significantly. And the population, of course, that demographic or that group that would be entitled to an income tax refund had increased significantly from the year that was first proposed. So what I did was I strengthened the language, strengthened the law to provide for a 10%. But had I had my way, it would have been 15% set aside. And maybe a senator will take up that mantle and increase it to 15% set aside to pay out income tax refunds, to make sure into the future that, like the caller that just called in, is not owed 4 years of income tax refund. That is unconscionable for someone to be owed monies, and again I'm going to repeat, owed monies, their money that was taken from them, deducted from them, and they can't get it back. Why do you think a lot of people in the Virgin Islands are filing their taxes abroad? Whether it's Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, wherever else that they can file. Because they would get their refund back in about 2 or 3 weeks. That is encouraging. Why hasn't our government achieved the same thing? The culture has got to change. Because if the culture don't change, do you realize income tax refunds put money into circulation because those same individuals go out and they patronize local businesses? All these large payouts that go in for other things coming back to the Public Finance Authority. When you look at some of these contracts that was born through influence, that was born through other reasons, and the amount of money that is paid out, I think it's unconscionable that even with a home repair program, roof repair program, whatever you want to call it, Envision Tomorrow, that you still got people waiting for money. When in fact consultants who you have in here have made as much as $80 to $90 million in a year just to be consulted to manage capital projects. And you can't see Virgin Islanders benefiting from money that was intended to assist them here in the Virgin Islands. But everyone wants to remain quiet about these kind of things. It's unfortunate. It's really, really unfortunate. And hopefully, you know, with the payouts that is taking place, I applaud them for paying out something. But that does not make us whole. What makes us whole is to have a plan of action, not no piecemeal approach. Because the piecemeal approach leaves us still in a quandary. Because while some of us may get something, what about a majority that is not receiving anything? And that should be a concern. That should be a concern for everyone. Things are not moving. But let's see if the paradigm is going to continue. We got a November election coming up, and I encourage everyone, make sure you're registered. Go out and vote. That is your fundamental right. If you understand the history and how we fought for the right to vote, you will go out and value voting. It's part of democracy, and it's your democratic right. Good morning. You're on the air. Connect the dots.
Good morning, Francie. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm blessed. How are you?
Listen, I'm listening to this tax return issue, right? And let me give you an example of what happened to me last year. Well, it wasn't bad. What happened was I traveled out Ireland a lot. I'm gone practically 6 months out of the year. And I'm retired as well. So what I did was I was, at the time that the taxes had to be filed, I was in the States. So I filed up there, but I was concerned because I knew they have had talk that you're supposed to file your taxes in the States.
Yeah.
But the young lady is from St. Croix. She's a tax consultant. And what she did was she broke down my taxes. She gave me a set for federal, and she gave me a set for the VI. So what I did is I filed the federal up there, and I filed the VI down there. I don't even know, because I told her I was concerned about it, but she said no. She said, that's why that I have, are you waiting for so long? She said, because I guess with the monies, however they go with the monies, and they don't pay the federal government their monies on time, and by the time it comes, they have to pay this money up before they could pay out our money. So she said, you're not really doing anything wrong. She said, I'm going to give the federal government their money, and I'm going to send you home to file the VI taxes there. And that's what she did. Now, I remember handing in my papers, and this young lady tell me, oh, you might get added. And I said, why? She said, because once they see this form, so there was a form that she put to the front. She said, it's going to give them a red flag that you file in the state.
Yeah.
So I called the young lady. She said, don't mind them. She said, yeah, that might happen. She said, but then, so why would they add it to you? She said, it's a legal document you're filing. You filing your taxes for the Virgin Islands in the Virgin Islands, and your federal tax is filed up here. That shouldn't have nothing to do with them down there. So I'm still waiting to see, because I didn't get back the tax return. So I'm hoping and praying, but I put it out there because this young lady says she does a lot of taxes for people, elderly people and retired people that live in the States, between the States and the Virgin Islands.
Yeah.
And she said she breaks it down like that. So I'm hoping and praying that everything, really works out in my favor. You know what I mean? Because it's ridiculous. Yeah. When you have to wait, like the woman said, 3 and 4 years to get back your taxes, and although the government says that these taxes are paid up to date, I know a lot of people who still waiting for 2 and 3 years worth of income tax. So I don't know what the story is. But of course, they'll say, like, maybe they have some kind of an issue going on as to why maybe they have not gotten this thing. But still, 2-3 years at this point? Anyway,
and
that's my little 2 cents.
And just, I'm quite sure you're listening. I'm quite sure you were listening to the program from a little earlier, and you heard another caller called in and said they're owed 4 years.
Yes, that's the one I'm
That's-
talking about.
yeah,
It's
that's-
like, how in the world you're waiting so long?
Yeah.
What is the story on that? Like you said, when you had powers that in, everything was going good. When Lolo Willis was there,
Yeah.
it was going good. So I'm not understanding why, if we could have do it good then, why we can't do it, continue to have done it the same way?
Well, we fell
What
behind.
changed so?
Yeah, well, we fell behind. And if they fell behind, and now it's a catch-up game. But you'll hear the same from every administration. If they do what they're supposed to do and just respect the law, the 10% set aside, let the legislature appropriate what is considered to be the differential and put it under the miscellaneous section of the budget, then there would be no how should I say, no shortages in being able to pay out these income tax refunds and paying them out on time, because you're reducing the level of interest owed to the
Exactly.
taxpayers.
Exactly. Let me bring something else to your attention in reference to retirees.
Yeah.
I had a friend that wanted to retire. She retired. But like you said, when she went to retire, they told her she had to pay the government portion
Yeah.
in order to retire. Okay? Now, as an educator, a former educator, we didn't get a contract for almost 8 years. We stayed on the same contract for all those years. And I feel jaded because if I had gotten my raise the way I should have gotten it, then I would have retired with a bigger salary.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
And I went to different senators because we're in between a rock and a hard place. I went to different senators because my thing is, when Governor Mapp increased the teachers' salary, I think they should have done it for us as well. Now, given we can't get any free money in terms of if that's money they were going to give us to say, okay, they're going to increase,
Yeah.
then we have an obligation to pay our portion into the GERS. We can't say, okay, they give the teachers a raise, so we should get it too. But we got to realize when we got to put our portion in for those 8 years, the government would have had to put in their zone in order for us to reach the plateau of that money to retire with. And I understand that. Not everybody now would have the money to do that. So it wouldn't really work maybe for the mass. I don't know. You know, but I'm saying we weren't given an opportunity to say, well, yeah, okay, if I could give the government $20,000 because that's why I owe them through the 8 years, so I could retire on a higher salary because the rates came in, then they give me the opportunity to do that. Another thing they do, teachers get sick time. They don't get annual time. And government employees can retire and get paid out 480 annual hours. But teachers don't get it. So when we retire, what do we get? Nothing. All our sick time go back because they don't take the sick time to be the 480 that we also can have as a cushion when we retire. And I think it's unfair. People are saying, oh, well, I don't get annual because I get some of that. I just try to tell people the money I get during the summer when I off is money prorated. I don't work for that money. I don't work for my summer pay.
Yeah.
Because also teaching in the New York City school system, we had a choice. I could have said, okay, at the end of my 10 months, I want my lump sum. Or I could have let them spread it out during the summer so I could still continue receiving a check every 2 weeks. But people need to get out of this mentality that teachers are just sit down and in air-conditioned classroom and don't do nothing. Mental stress is a serious thing in teaching. Okay? So we don't need that time off from these children that the parents they themselves can't handle but expect us to. And when we do, they're taking us to the commissioner office and the superintendent, so they like how we handle the children. You understand? But they need, the senators need to sit down and think about this thing. It's unfair that teachers have to retire and have no cushion at all. If the government employees could get 480 of their annual time, then teachers should be able to get 480 of the sick time that we accrue. And I gave back almost 1,500 hours. Come on now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So That's it. Okay, love. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for calling, okay? Yeah, an interesting thought came from that dialogue, and that is what happened to the employees who retired and covered the costs that the government was supposed to assume? Were they reimbursed? Were they reimbursed later on? If not, do they have a claim if that truly exists? Because it would seem to me that if the government failed to pay their portion into the retirement system and a person, in order to retire, had to assume the responsibility of paying that fair share contribution that was supposed to come from the government, then shouldn't they be entitled to filing a claim with the government to be reimbursed for the portion that the government would have paid? Does it exist? Well, the caller said yes. So let me take a commercial break because, I can't do this without my sponsors, the sponsors who have been so gracious enough. One in particular, any of you have went to Catch of the Day down on Cookie Point Beach? I mean, they have lobster to die for. And they have a conch chowder that I tasted down there just the other day. And for those of you who have not visited Catch of the Day, it's located on Cookie Point Beach. And let me tell you, there's so much activities, water activities that you can indulge in after eating, or I would suggest you do it before you eat. You don't want to go and drive or ride a jet ski after eating anywhere in the ocean, because that is not going to come off right at all. Anyway, let me take a break and go to It's Catch of the Day. From the water to your mouth, everything is fresh at Catch of the Day, located on Cookie Point Beach. Enjoy some of your favorite seafood dishes: fresh catch, lobster, herring, and whelks when in season, as well as surf and turf. They cater to your wishes. While you sit and wait for your food, enjoy the friendly bar and bask in the ambience that is second to none. Enjoy the white sand, sun, and crystal blue water. We are sure the experience will be unique. Monday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Come and enjoy Catch of the Day on Cookie Point Beach. Yes, I'm back on the air, and I'm back on the air. Yes, that's Catch of the Day, and of course, Hometown Gas Station, who's also another sponsor. I wanted to thank them for their support of the program. And I don't know if any of you have gone by Hometown Gas Station and tasted their pizza. I go there especially for the pizza, but within the store they have so many different items. And I mean, it's so convenient. That's why they call it Hometown Convenience Store, because it's convenient. Last minute, you could pick anything up there. I mean, they have fresh food there in case you wanted lunch. I had some stew mutton there about 2 weeks ago, and it was to die for. It was actually nice and soft. And I know for many of you Virgin Islanders, that's what you enjoy. You enjoy a fresh plate of food. Hometown Gas Station, visit there. But back to the subject here, we're discussing what is the mission of the PFA. And you know, the mission of the PFA, the governor being the chairman of the PFA, I think that to start on the mission, let's incorporate in the mission transparency. Because I think transparency is so important. That gains public confidence when you're totally transparent. If you lack transparency, it means that you're concealing or you're hiding something from the public. And I feel that there should always be fair distribution of the resources, because after all, the resources that we have, it's intended to be disseminated through programs that provide services for people. Services not just for taxpayers, services for residents of the Virgin Islands, because not every resident is a registered voter. But for the majority of the residents, and especially those that pay taxes, the taxes, monies that go into the coffers. It was intended to provide them with the essential services that the government promised to give in exchange for taxes received. Now, back to the PFA. I'm out of time. I didn't even realize that I was down to the. Oh, well, Robbie, thank you for alerting me that I'm out of time. So, folks, we have. I know many of you have insisted that I extend my radio program at least 1 hour, but 1 hour means money, and of course, I'm here for just a time to, in fact, enlighten Virgin Islanders as much as I possibly can, because I know that there's a lot of vexing issues and concerns that you have, but also to provide you with a platform that you need to share your collective ideas, your innovative ideas, to see how you could contribute, become a part of the decision-making process, and hope that the government, elected officials, embrace what you have to say. Because after all, you are the ones that are affected. You are the ones that can determine what you feel is necessary. And we understand that every person with a problem or issue or something that adversely affects them are concerned about their isolated problem and not about the myriad of problem. And that's where government should always be sensitive and sensible. This has been Adler Fonsi Donnerstog here on WSTA. Connect the dots. I'm here every Monday from 10 to 11 a.m. And I just wanted to tell you guys to have a wonderful and productive day, but have a productive week, a blessed week. Until next Monday, signing out.
Please log into your mobile phone, television, computer for live streaming or your nearest radio. It's now time to listen to Connecting the Dots. People come, let we go. Turn up the radio. Turn it up. This is the People Show. No matter where we go. Connecting people. We all love you. We are here for you. We can hear you. Connecting people. People come, let we go. Turn up the radio. Turn it up. This is the People Show. No matter where we go. Connect the dots, family. Connect the dots, unity. Connect the dots for you and me. Connect the dots.
Move with the rhythm, shake it up, stop when the clock hits 13. Keep it